everyone, this is Cindy Luby with another quick and easy card. Today I'm going to show you how to use our candy cane background stamp along with our Holly Jolly Wishes to make a quick and easy card and to step it up just a little bit. So I'm going to show you how to use our background stamp with our Stamparatus, which is a great tool to use when we're using such a large stamp. So one of the things that I do when I'm placing down my stamp is that I go ahead and ink it up and make sure that I have an impression of something as a guide to go with, that I can line up everything with our card. Because if you don't, sometimes in the past when we've done something, you would have to try to even it up on the stamp itself and then do it. But this way, you're actually using your Stamparatus as a guide to put your card down in order to stamp it. But I'm actually going to stamp it with our black cardstock today, which is going to be something very different. And I'm going to be using our white embossing powder. So on this, I've just put a little bit of adhesive here. You just get your tape runner and just do a little dab here, and then that will hold it, because unfortunately, because of the size of the stamp, we are unable to use our magnetic bar to hold it down. But this will actually hold it down with no problem, just using a little bit of adhesive. But before I do all of that, I want to use our embossing buddy. It is a great tool to use, so you get rid of all that static and oils that are on your hand. Because if you don't use something to do that, your actual powder will be stuck to other areas that you don't want, and it won't make a good, clean stamp process if you don't do this, because you'll find that you'll be picking out your embossing and powder in areas that you don't want it. So just make sure that you've rubbed that really good. And then I'm going to give you another tip that I notice when I use my black once I do my process. But let's get this started. So I'm going to go ahead and just set this down now. And I'm just going to make sure that I get it even in between everything. So I'm going to get an actual good stamp throughout my entire card. So I'm going to do this one more time just because I know I just touched it a little bit. And now I'm going to use my Versamark. And our Versamark is a sticky stamp ink that is great for doing this process. So you're going to actually just cover this over, and you'll probably find that you're going to need to stamp this probably twice in order to get some good coverage. I have a new tool that I'm using, which is a hockey puck, which I'll show you, but it really does help with your hands. As I'm finding I'm getting older, it's hard for me to press down on some areas. My hands get a little tired, but I'm just making sure that I get good coverage on this, and then I'm going to go ahead and press this down. And then when I do that, I'm going to take my hockey puck and I'm just going to go and press all over this stamp a couple of times just to make sure that I get good impression. And like I told you, you're probably going to have to stamp this twice, only because it's such a large stamp and you want to make sure that you get some good coverage. I notice sometimes right in the middle of the stamp is where I find that I need to kind of go over it again to make sure that I've got enough ink on everything. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that again. And I'm just going to go ahead and press this down really good and see what kind of coverage I'm going to get. And one of the great tools that I also use that's in your kitchen actually is a coffee filter. And that's actually where I'm going to be pouring all my embossing powder in order so it doesn't spill, and then I can reuse it. So looking at my stamp, I'm kind of looking to see where you can kind of see where all the impression is. And it looks like I got some pretty good coverage on this. So I think I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to take this up. Like I said, just a little bit of adhesive on the back. And I'm going to go ahead and put this to the side. And now I'm bringing over my coffee filter. And I'm going to actually be pouring on my embossing powder to get good coverage throughout my stamped image. And one thing, you don't have to be stingy with this. You can be very liberal and then let it just pour on. And you can see where it's actually giving you good coverage, and then sometimes you will find that sometimes you have to go back over it again with some powder just to make sure, like right here in the middle, I find that it didn't cover very well in that area. So you just want to go over a couple of times to make sure that you have that. If you've gone through it like I have and you want to do it again, all you have to do is pour it back into your little cup, and you can go and pour away again. So it just doesn't matter how many times. The key on this one is you just want to make sure that you get some good coverage all over where you've stamped everything. Now, one of the things that I noticed when I was making my prototype with this one is I did notice that some of my powder actually got on the inside of my card. Now, I don't see that it's doing a lot of that today, but I did notice when I was doing it before, so you kind of look at that. If you do get it inside of your card, just take a brush, like I have a brush here, and then I can just brush over it to get it out of the card. But I think we're doing pretty good here. I think I've got some pretty good coverage on that. So before I get my gun started, I'm going to go ahead and pour that all back into my cup, because you don't want to start your gun and then you've got powder everywhere. So the other key of starting off your heat gun is that you want to get it hot. So what I always do, pardon the noise here level, but one of the things that you always want to do is make sure that your gun is getting pretty warm before you start melting your embossing powder. I find that it's really helpful. It kind of quickens up the process, and then that way you're not sitting there trying to go over it time and time again to try to get everything to melt. So it feels like it's pretty hot now, so I can go ahead and start putting this on my thing. And one of the things that I don't do is I don't go back and forth. I tend to just kind of just keep moving. Don't do it in one spot, but just keep moving it back and forth, and you'll find that it'll start heating up, and then you'll kind of see that it'll start turning a brighter white. You can always tell the areas that you haven't melted your embossing powder, because it will still be kind of a dull gray looking. But you can kind of see the difference here on the bright white area, and then these other areas are still gray. So that's the kind of way that I always can kind of tell. You can always do your little test by hitting it with your finger just to see if it's smooth or is it still granular. If it's still granular, just be careful, because you can knock off your powder. But you can always do just a little bit of a test on that just to kind of see. But I always find the best way for me to find out whether I have done a good job or not a good job is by seeing if it's all shiny. Like this end looks pretty shiny. You can kind of see the other end isn't. And if you get tired of holding it with your fingers, you can always use your tweezers, and you can have it hold it out that way too. Just be careful that you don't do it on the unembossed areas, because you'll not actually knock off your embossing powder, and you don't want to do that after all of your hard work. So this is just it's going and melting away, and I decided on this card it would be kind of fun to do, instead of your traditional color of candy canes being red, that I would do it on a black and white card, and then I'm just going to do some red accents on the card to kind of dress it up a little bit. So it looks like we are just about all melted. Looks like we've got pretty good coverage. Let's see if I can kind of see right here in the middle, make sure that I've done everything. But the key, like I've said in the past, is that your gun is very warm. And if it's nice and hot, it will melt your powder. And see, I'm doing the test and everything looks nice and smooth, so it looks like I've done pretty good on that. So pretty good coverage. Now on the inside of my card, I decided that I was going to go ahead and stamp my Holly Jolly Christmas. I'm going to do a mat on the outside, and I've already done this. And so on the inside, I'm actually going to be doing the sentiment that says, "'Tis the season to be jolly." I thought that would be a great way to accent the inside of my card. So I'm going to go ahead and do some real red on that. And I'm going to go ahead and stamp that. Normally I stamp on my, my pad, but here I'm just going to do a test on it just to kind of see where I'm at. Up, and look at that. I am Willy, oh, I actually kind of like it Willy Wonkered. I think it looks kind of cute that way, so I think I'm going to keep it that way. You don't have to everything to be one level all the time. Do it to what pleases your eye. That is the key to making a card. Nothing says it has to be one way or the other. It just depends on what you want your look to be. So I kind of like that. I kind of like it to be a little on the angular side. Now, since I've already got this part done, go ahead and close up my ink. I'm going to go ahead and get some dimensionals here, and I'm going to go ahead and put my have a holly jolly Christmas on the outside. So I'm going to do that so I have a little bit of dimension on my card. And I'm actually going to do a different kind of embellishment, and I'm actually, oops, I've got things sticking to me everywhere here. I'm going to do a piece of ribbon. So I'm actually going to do that with our real red ribbon. So I'm going to put this down here because I'm going to put my ribbon kind of up on this area. And I'm going to go ahead and use our pretty ribbon that we have in our holiday cat. I just love this ribbon. It's so easy to tie, such a pretty color. Well, it'd be easier if I could grab it really quick. All right. And then I just kind of tie it to the size of bow that I want. And I want a little bit bigger bow because I've got a little bit more space that I can fill up. So I'm just going to kind of see how pretty that is once it starts doing, kind of getting where I want it to be. And one of the things that I'm going to need, which I don't think I brought out, but that's okay, is I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of tape down here, tape runner, and I'm going to go ahead and put my bow down. And I'm going to go ahead and get my scissors, and I'm going to go ahead and cut that a little bit. So I always cut after. I don't try to do it just if I have a little bit extra, because I never know how long I want my legs to be here. And if they're not laying down like you want them to lay down, then you can always put a little bit of tape runner on there and just stick it down. But I think that makes a great bow. Look how pretty that one is. Makes a great bow and a very simple card that you can do. You could do these just by putting in your Stamparatus and keep stamping away and get that heat gun going and emboss. Before you know it, you've got lots of different cards. You could even do these in different colors if you wanted. So that is a great way to make a quick and easy card using one of our background stamps, which is called Candy Cane. So I hope you liked this video and look forward to seeing you again when I do another video on making a quick and easy card. And I hope everybody has a wonderful day. Happy crafting!